This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Stick around to learn more. The Monster Hunter series has two development teams working on it. One team for the main series games like Tri, 4 and World, and another for the portable series, including games like Portable 3rd, Generations and Rise. Having two teams work on different games allows for Capcom to output a Monster Hunter entry roughly every year, whether it be a game or an expansion. Because these development teams are different, it often means they make different design choices in how they make their respective Monster Hunter games. In this video, I will break down and discuss some of the ways the main and portable series teams do things differently from each other. Monster Hunter expansions don't just feature new and returning monsters, but existing monsters from the base game usually get new attacks and abilities that can really make them more threatening than they once were. However, in some cases, monsters in the base game can often stay there, not getting a respective master rank version. The main series developers tend to do this a lot. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate was essentially an expansion to Monster Hunter 3, but also an attempt to incorporate the content from Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. And they did, but some monsters were excluded. Tigrex and his subspecies, Bulldrome and Portable 3rd's final boss Amatsu were not included, while other monsters were. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate did not give the Great Jaggi a G-rank moveset, and several monsters from the base game were either hard to encounter or Event Quest exclusive. These include Gormagala, Dalamadur, Black Fatalis, as well as Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian. In the case of the first three, they all had monsters in the expansion that essentially served their role and replaced them. Gormagala was replaced by his chaotic variant, Dalamadur was replaced by the Shah, and Black Fatalis was replaced by the Super Crimson Fatalis. Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian, however, were simply saved for episodic event quests. Iceborne took things to the next level, completely omitting Nergigante, Deviljho, Basilgoose, Valhazak, Zoromagdaros and Xeno'jiiva. Iceborne also didn't give master rank forms to the crossover monsters Behemoth and the Leshens, although due to licensing issues it is understandable. Like with Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, these monsters had suitable replacements in the form of Ruiner Nergigante, Savage Deviljho, Seething Basilgoose, Black Veil Valhazak, and later Safi'jiiva. Zoromagdaros received nothing, but he was generally disliked, so nobody really missed him. We didn't get anything to replace the crossover monsters, but some argue Safi'jiiva is like a master rank behemoth. Now generally, the portable team doesn't exclude anyone. Every single monster in Generations is in Generations Ultimate. Every base monster, even with variants, is present and fightable, with G-rank movesets. No monster is Event Quest exclusive either. Sunbreak, however, does omit the Apex monsters, and Thunder Serpent Nawa is replaced by the All-Mother completely, but these are the only ones. Magnamalo receives a new variant in the form of Scorned Magnamalo, but he himself is also present with new attacks. Sunbreak is getting Seething Basilgoose in a title update, but the base form is already in the game. The main series approach of excluding the base forms is very interesting. Arguably, it means there's less content in the game, but when you really think about it, they only really replaced monsters where it felt like their original role was invalidated by the variant. Take Deviljho. Why bother giving him a G-rank moveset when you can instead give all the new interesting additions to Savage Deviljho and make him a much better fight? The base form would be filler content that players wouldn't engage with, as Savage would be a greater challenge with much better gear to craft. Generations Ultimate included absolutely everyone, but with the base game roster already being large, it meant the expansion was just too big, just rows upon rows of quests. It really felt like padding. Omitting some of the monsters, or saving them for event quests, could have made for a more condensed experience like Iceborne and 4 Ultimate. Speaking of 4 Ultimate, I would say its approach is the best. Not having absolutely every monster means that getting through G-rank doesn't drag for too long. Not to mention, leaving the base forms in event quests means that the content can still be accessed. Sunbreak omitted Nawa for the same reason Iceborne omitted the base forms of its variants. I think it's a good decision because All-Mother is the final form of Nawa and is in my opinion a much better fight. The apexes were omitted because they didn't really have a purpose with the removal of rampages. Do you prefer having every single monster in the expansion? Or do you prefer omitting certain monsters if their purpose is fulfilled by what is often a better monster? Let me know what you think. Monster Hunter games are structured so that they have a set of low rank quests that are exclusively single player, known as the village quests, as well as a set of low and high rank quests intended for multiplayer, known as the hub quests. The expansion usually adds a high rank village as well as a master rank hub. The exceptions to this are World and Iceborne, which have a single low, high and master rank set of quests that dynamically scale with the amount of players. Rise has a low rank village as well as a low and high rank hub, but Sunbreak is master rank only. Usually there are storylines associated with each set of quests, with a final boss at the end of low rank village, high rank hub, high rank village and master rank hub. The way each development team differs is who they have as the final village boss. The portable team tends to have the flagship monster, while the main team has someone original. Lagiacrus is the flagship monster of 3, Basadius is the final boss of the village. Gore Magala is the flagship of 4, but Shigaru Magala ends up being the final fight. In high rank villages too, it's never the case, with Brachydios nor Seregios being the final boss of their respective village quests. Instead, it's Rusted Kushala and Ivory Lagiacrus. Now contrast this with the portable team, where the flagship monster is almost always the final village fight. The credits roll after beating Zinogre in Portable 3rd, Glavenus in Generations, Valstrax in Generations Ultimate, and Magnamalo in Rise. The exception to this is Malzeno. Because Sunbreak doesn't have a single player village questline, he is simply part of the overarching story, and the credits play after beating the true final boss. I'm not certain which approach I prefer. In the main series, the flagship's appearance is usually a side effect or precursor to the main threat, who upon encountering can be a pretty climactic event. With the exception of Generations, the portable team does this too, with Zinogre and Magnamalo being the sign of a bigger threat, so having the end credits play after beating them feels very weird. In the main series, the low rank story is very self-contained, but Portable 3rd and Rise extend the story into the hub quests, so having the credits play so early is a bit off. This is especially the case with Magnamalo, because by the time Rise came out, I had played quite a few Monster Hunter games and I knew how things would go, that he wasn't the main threat and that something bigger was going on. But the story also made it clear that he was just a side effect of the rampage and not the cause of it. Rise's village was also fairly short, being a tutorial of sorts, so the credits felt very premature. I think it would play a lot better if the portable team's flagships were the main threat. For example, in Generations Ultimate, the story centers around Valstrax, so having the credits play after he's beaten makes sense and feels very satisfying, as he's fairly tough on his own. It's just a matter of making the flagships feel threatening, but also have the village stories feel self-contained, even if they aren't truly. Another way in which the main and portable series differ is how they choose to show damage numbers on weapons. Damage in Monster Hunter is calculated by multiplying the raw damage of your weapon, the modifier your sharpness provides, the hit zone of the monster part you're attacking, and the motion value of the attack you're performing. The result of this is the number you see when you are attacking, and this equation is taken into account with every single attack you dish out. In the portable series, the game will display the raw damage of your weapon. This means that a greatsword and dual blades of the same class will display the same raw value. Now, despite them having the same number, they would not do the same damage per attack, because greatsword has much higher motion values on its slow attacks as opposed to dual sword's low motion values on its very fast attacks. Back in the day, we couldn't see the amount of damage each weapon was dishing out, so presumably players would look at a sword and shield having 150 damage and look at a greatsword with the same amount and think, while the sword and shield does the same damage and is much faster, it's clearly the better weapon. The main series developers avoid this problem by bloating the displayed damage value of each weapon to try and represent each weapon type's individual power. The damage number you see on screens is simply the raw damage but multiplied, with each weapon being inflated by a different number. Let's take a greatsword with 150 raw damage. The bloat multiplier for this weapon is 4.8, so the damage would be displayed on the weapon screen as 730. A 150 raw sword and shield on the other hand only has a 1.4 multiplier, so the damage would be displayed as 210. This means that presumably, a player would look at the bloated values of both weapons and come to the conclusion that Greatsword definitely does more damage per attack. Keep in mind, this only affects how the damage is presented to us on the equipment screen. Gameplay wise, it's still going to do normal damage, and two equivalent weapon types will still have the same raw values. The bloated values are implemented to better represent the power of each weapon. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, World and Iceborne use bloated values, while Portable 3rd, Generations, Rise and Sunbreak use the true values. Now personally, I prefer the true values. If I'm using a longsword that does 280 damage and I want to use a different weapon entirely, I'll know to look for a weapon that does the same damage or better. Now this is easy to do when we know the true values. But with bloated, the numbers are all over the place, with Greatsword often ranging in the thousands, with other weapons ranging much lower, and this makes it very hard to draw comparisons. With damage numbers now being shown to us when we attack, I genuinely think both development teams should just use the true values, as we can now physically see how much damage we can do. I think it's going to be confusing for people as the series grows. Many people started with World, and when Rise came out I saw posts online asking why their Greatsword did so little damage compared to the other game. In truth, a Greatsword of equal value in World and Rise does the same damage, but people were so used to the bloated values that they thought the weapon was nerfed. It just created unnecessary confusion, and they should just stick with one. Which do you all prefer? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Procedural generation refers to the practice of generating game content such as levels, quests or characters algorithmically. The main series developers have been experimenting with this for a while now, starting off with somewhat randomized hunts and then expanding further as the games went on. Monster Hunter Tri had a location called the Moga Woods, which was basically a free hunt mode in a deserted island. You could hang out there and hunt many different types of monsters to your heart's desire. The monsters appear randomly, and you can check beforehand who will appear. Monster Hunter 4 took things further, introducing a new exclusive free hunt area known as the Everwood. The map was randomized not just in terms of the monsters who could appear, but also the structure, as every time you went out on an expedition, the layout would be completely different. Defeating monsters there would award you with guild quests. These were randomly generated quests that you're supposed to grind to raise their level, and doing so will reward you with random weapons and armor. Monster Hunter World also has a way of obtaining randomized quests known as investigations. By collecting tracks while out on a hunt, you receive these randomly. These quests can have different factors, such as the monsters you're supposed to hunt, whether to capture or kill, how much time you have, and the kind of rewards you can receive. They're a great way to get rare materials such as mantles and gems, and add a lot of quest variety. The Portable series does none of this. In Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, Generations, Rise and Sunbreak, you have your quests, your materials from quest rewards, gear to craft from those rewards, and that's that. Rise does have a free hunt mode in the form of its own expeditions, but it doesn't give any special rewards. They simply serve as a way for you to go out on maps without going on dedicated quests. In fact, this serves as a segue into another thing the main series and Portable teams do differently, and that is how they approach endgame content. Monster Hunter 4 was the first game to have a dedicated endgame system, tied to the guild quests. As said earlier, you would level them up over time, and depending on how hard the monster was, you'd get some randomized gear that could turn out to be pretty strong. World's endgame had you fight enhanced monsters to get decorations, which were given to you randomly in this game. Iceborne had multiple endgames, one of which was the Guiding Lands, a huge map with every biome seen in the game, and almost every monster. They appear randomly, and you can hunt them to level up each biome, which will allow for stronger monsters to appear. It also had another endgame in the form of sieges. Grinding Kolv Taroth or Safi Jiva would net you random but potentially powerful weapons similar to guild quest rewards. Essentially, the main series developers like to experiment with not only randomized quests, but also randomized rewards beyond monster parts, such as actual random gear. The Portable series, however, doesn't focus nearly as much as RNG, with either its quests or its endgames. Generation's endgame had you hunt enhanced monsters known as hypers. They have higher health pools and have glowing parts on their body that deal more damage. The rewards are hyper parts, which are used to upgrade weapon trees to rarity 10, meaning you can potentially get all your weapons at similar power levels. For example, if I want to upgrade my Seregios weapon to the maximum, I will need to hunt Hyper Seregios to get the specific materials needed, and the result is that the weapon is endgame viable, and this applies for other hyper monsters such as Arzuras. Rise didn't have an endgame, but Sunbreak does, and afflicted monsters have the same purpose as hypers. Grinding them will give you afflicted parts to upgrade weapons to rarity 10, potentially making everything endgame viable once again. The key difference from the main series is that with the portable team's endgames, you know what you're getting. If I grind a Hyper Astalos, I'm doing it to upgrade my Hyper Astalos weapons to the maximum. There is a clear achievable goal in mind, whereas with the main series games, you can spend a lot of time grinding guild quests or Kolv Taroth and still not receive what you're looking for. As for the question of which approach is better, it honestly depends on what you prefer. Expeditions and investigations more or less allow for infinite content, as you can never run out of quests to complete. The RNG weapon grinds can also be a fantastic source of content, as you can hunt and hunt for hours on end to get your desired weapon. I for one hated the decoration grind in World and Iceborne, but it was something a lot of people missed on Rise, because they felt like it was a good reward to spend hours hunting for. But that's the thing, some people may not want to grind that much just to get one extra powerful weapon or tool, especially if it isn't a guarantee. The portable game's endgames are designed so that if somebody wants to upgrade their desired weapon to the maximum, they know exactly what they need to grind for and what materials to obtain. It's basically the standard Monster Hunter gameplay loop, but extended further. As for whether RNG or static quests are better, I didn't initially see the value of World's investigations until much later, when I actually had to start grinding for materials. They're genuinely great for that purpose, and I'm looking forward to how they're expanded in the future. I think having a wide variety of optional quests as well as investigations is the perfect combo for now. Monster Hunter Generations had a shorter development cycle than most Monster Hunter games. The developers wanted to add a brand new weapon type, but they simply didn't have enough time. So instead they thought of a different idea to spice up existing weapons, the hunting styles. They also added special attacks known as hunter arts that needed to be charged up by dealing damage. There are 6 hunting styles to pick from on every weapon, and each of them affect the way you use them. Guild style is the standard moveset, with 2 hunter arts available. Striker style has a simplified moveset, but 3 hunter arts and overall faster charging. Aerial style has 1 slot and a limited moveset, but has a special vaults that you can use to access other attacks. Adept style has a special dodge that activates when you barely avoid an attack, and only has 1 hunter art. Alchemy and Valor style were added in Generations Ultimate. Alchemy has a simplified moveset and 3 hunter arts, but has a special barrel you can use to support your teammates in various ways. Valor starts off with a simple moveset, but after you fill up a gauge by performing special attacks, you can unlock a whole new enhanced moveset, but it only has 1 hunter art. Each weapon has access to around 4 unique hunter arts, with several other arts that can be equipped everywhere, and you can equip any one you want. So for the first time in the series, Monster Hunter Generations features a way for hunters to customize their movesets. They can choose whatever hunter arts they want, and whatever style to fully suit their playstyle. Rise and Sunbreak have the switch skill system, which instead let you exchange one attack for another, and depending on what you swap, can drastically change how you approach each fight. Sunbreak allows for you to swap between them with a single button press mid-combat, which opens up the combat massively. So far, the main series developers have not done this. While Monster Hunter World incorporated the ideas behind certain styles and arts into the weapon movesets, there was no customization whatsoever. You had your moveset, you had to work with it, and any customization was done through armor skills. I'm going to segue this into another segment, regarding how each team has been approaching combat as of late. The main series developers tend to have somewhat realistic combat. It's fairly grounded, and the player relies on positioning, dodging and guarding to defend against attacks. The portable teams starting with Generations have taken a more flashy approach, performing wild attacks, flipping through the air, absorbing damage, using special attacks to counter and parry. Some would describe the combat in Generations and Rise as anime-like. I feel like Rise does a better job of making it feel realistic, but it's still a pretty wild departure from what we are used to in Monster Hunter, especially the earlier games. As for which is better, I can't say, but I do really like how the two teams have two distinct styles of gameplay. It keeps things very fresh, especially since Monster Hunter practically has yearly releases. We're never getting the same thing twice in a row. The grounded combat is very satisfying, and the flashy combat is just really cool to pull off. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate has my favourite combat in the series, but Sunbreak and Generations Ultimate are tied for second. I like them all for different reasons. In regards to the custom movesets, I will say that while I do like having options in which attacks I can use, I don't mind not having them in games like World and 4. It's definitely up to preference. A somewhat subtle difference is how each development team approaches the music of each game. Main series games tend to have dedicated theme music. For example, World's theme is called Stars at Our Backs. A singular track made for the game, and many other tracks in the game take cues from it. Iceborne's theme is called Succession of Light. Once again, you hear it throughout the game. Monster Hunter 4's theme is called Wind of Departure. Now the way the portable series differs is that those games don't really have their own themes. Instead they have motifs. A motif is a musical idea that gets repeated throughout a song. For example, the Quest Complete theme from Monster Hunter 4 is using a motif from Winds of Departure by using those notes to form a different track while still being derivative of the main theme. The portable games tend to have their own motifs, but not their own themes, if that makes sense. The easiest way to identify them is to listen to the village themes of each portable game, as well as the flagship and final boss, among other tracks. So while each main series game has its own theme that the other tracks draw motifs from, The portable games simply have motifs. I'm going to be honest, I definitely prefer having full themes. The soundtrack has more to draw from, and it's cool how elements from a whole piece of music can be used across everything. World did a fantastic job, with so many parts of Stars at Our Backs being referenced across so many of its original tracks. With the portable games, it can be hard to notice a lot of the motifs because they're not really as defined. It's definitely something I would like them to change, but they've been doing it for so long, it's unlikely. Sunbreak also does this, with parts of the Elgato theme showing up in different places, including Proof of a Hero. Speaking of, Rise and Sunbreak have wildly different versions of Proof of a Hero that incorporate each game's motifs into it. These iterations could also be interpreted as the themes for each game, as they're so distinct from the classic version we know. In this section of the video, we will discuss some smaller, minor changes between the two series. Free Element, or Awaken, is an armor skill used to bring out hidden properties of weapons. When playing main series games, some weapons have greyed out elemental or status damage. This is because they aren't active, but equipping the armor skill Awaken will activate them. In Iceborne, Tigrex weapons have hidden blast, and Nagakugas have hidden poison, which seems like a very neat reference to their rare species. Anyway, these strong weapons can be made to be even stronger if you equip the armor skill, now having an extra use, and it's like that for other weapons too. The portable team simply doesn't do this. Free Element isn't a thing, and neither are the greyed out numbers. They just aren't in these games. Another minor difference is that the main series team places arm wrestling minigames in their gathering hubs, while the portable team does not. In the main series games, Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian tend to roam exclusively in a single map, usually the tower. This serves to make them feel more like arena fights. Monster Hunter World does have them hang out in the Elder's Recess and the Guiding Lands, but they will only fight in one area. The portable team, however, lets them roam around like any Rathalos or Rathian, hanging out in different maps and going from area to area. In regards to food, the main series team usually has the hunter eat big hearty meals. The portable team, however, likes to experiment more. Portable Third has the hunter buff themselves with hot springs, Generations has fondue, and Rise has dango. These are just some minor differences between the two series. Which do you prefer? Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different classes for people who want to learn new skills and explore their creativity. It's a fantastic resource for growing your skills and learning new things. There are so many courses to explore on things like photography, music, web development, all kinds of things that can help you grow as a person or learn useful skills to advance your career prospects. Skillshare has benefited me greatly too. When I first started on YouTube, I had no idea how to make thumbnails. I started using GIMP to create them, and they were really basic. Up until recently, I was still pretty much using trial and error to figure out the software. But thanks to this course by Brendan Schumacher, I learnt a lot about GIMP that I wouldn't have figured out on my own. It benefited me, and it can benefit you too. By clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment, the first 1,000 people will have 1 month of access to Skillshare Premium. This will allow you to access any course you want on the site and thus grow your skills and learn new things. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I hope you'll all take it. Those are some of the biggest differences between the portable and main series Monster Hunter games. It's interesting to see how each development team handles different aspects of each game. There are some things I wish the portable team would really take on board, such as the investigations. While it would be great for the main series to finally start using the true weapon values, or even try their hand at customized movesets. This video was 95% done, but then all of a sudden, they announced anomaly investigations for Sunbreak, which from the description given, seemed like the grand return of 4 Ultimates guild quests, with the randomization of investigations, but with rewards similar to Hypers and Afflicteds. so it does seem like a great combination of the main and portable series approach to Endgames. But overall, I think it's great that the two series are so distinct from each other, as it means they're always experimenting in different ways and we're never getting the same thing twice. I'm curious to see if anyone else has noticed other design choices between the two games and which they prefer. Be sure to let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out my other videos too.